Hello everyone, this is Joseph with episode 2 of my guild series. This episode we have a Boros commander, red and white, and one that I really like the look of is Blaze Commando. So Blaze Commando is a 5/3 Minotaur soldier for 3 red white, and it has the ability that whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control deals damage, put 2 1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens with haste onto the battlefield. So we've got a triggered ability based off of burn spells, and it actually doesn't matter what else these spells do, they just also have to deal damage. And for that, we get 2 soldier tokens with haste. This honestly solves one of the big concerns for a Spellslinger deck, which is having blockers. Even better, we're getting them at a 2-for-1 rate, which means we can be more cavalier about using them. So, what are our goals for this deck? We're going to be burning away our enemies' creatures and use our disposable tokens to take them out. So I'm going to start off with ramp. We're going to use mana rocks like Commander Sphere, Boros Cluestone, and Boros Locket. These are each 3 mana artifacts that we can tap for red or white. More importantly, we can use them later for some emergency draw effects. Speaking of, we're going to have 2 strategies for draw, loot, and cantrips. So we're going to be using cards like Threatening Discovery and Prophetic Ravings. Threatening Discovery is a sorcery for a red and a white that has the effect of you gain 2 life, then you may discard 2 cards. If you do, draw 3 cards. Whereas Prophetic Ravings is an aura enchantment for a red that has enchanted creature has haste and tap, discard a card, draw a card. These will allow us to get rid of dead cards in our hand and dig for answers. And in the case of Prophetic Ravings, we can do it repeatedly. More importantly, the card also gives the creature haste, so we can start using the effect immediately or do something else with that same creature. In addition, we're going to use lots of cantrips. Now, cantrips are typically a 2-for-1, card draw plus an effect, but in this deck, our burn cantrips are actually 3-for-1s, since they're also going to be giving us those soldier tokens. So we're going to run cards like Blind Blast and Rile. So Blind Blast is an instant for 2 in a red that deals 1 damage to target creature. That creature can't block this turn and draw a card. Whereas Rile is a sorcery for a red that deals 1 damage to target creature we control, but also gives that creature trample until end of turn, and we draw a card. So Blind Blast won't just damage a creature, it'll also prevent it blocking, allowing us to swing in with those brand new tokens. And Rile at 1 mana is honestly a fantastic rate, considering everything that we're going to be getting out of it. We've also got plenty of other burn spells in here. Some of them only ping a creature like Lava Dart, which is an instant for a red that deals 1 damage to any target, and we can also use Flashback by sacrificing a mountain to cast it again from our graveyard. So Flashback is actually an interesting and important mechanic in this deck, because it'll allow us to use this spell out of the graveyard in case we need to get rid of 1 more creature, or if we want to instantly quick generate 2 more soldier tokens. So we've got a few of those in here. Other spells, like Seismic Strike, can take out our opponent's beefiest creatures. Seismic Strike is an instant for 2 in a red that deals damage to target creature equal to the number of mountains you control. But more than that, we want cards that give us additional effects on top of those burn spells. So we're going to be running removal cards like Smash to Smithereens and Orm's Thunder. Smash to Smithereens is an instant for 1 in a red that destroys target artifact and deals 3 damage to that artifact's controller, which is not a bad rate for 2 mana. Orm's Thunder is a little pricier. It's an instant for 2 in a white that has destroyed target artifact or enchantment, and if this spell was kicked, which costs an additional red mana, it deals damage equal to that permanent's converted mana cost to target creature. So this is a little pricier, and it's technically only 3 mana, but we're always going to be casting it for 4. But because the damage is based off of the converted mana cost of whatever we just destroyed, the floor is much lower, but also the ceiling is very high. But remember, the amount doesn't matter, it just needs to burn so that we get our soldiers. And now we've got Blastfire Bolt. Now Blastfire Bolt is an instant for 5 and a red that deals 5 damage to target creature and destroys all equipment attached to that creature. I was initially a little hesitant to include this card because of the mana cost, but here's the deal. If our opponent has a Voltron strategy, odds are they're going to be suited up with about a dozen equipment, and it's likely our normal burn spells simply won't do enough damage to kill it. Even if we did, those equipment would still be waiting for the next creature that's going to swing at us. Blast Fire Bolt is going to take out all of those equipment, and then likely will take out the creature too once its toughness is lowered. Depending on how hard our opponent is relying on a Voltron strategy, this could leave them starting from basically square one. And don't forget, all of these burn spells are going to be giving us plenty of tokens. So what are we going to use them for? First, we're going to have enter the battlefield effects like Anointer Priest and Court Street Denizen. Anointer Priest is a 1/3 human cleric for 1 and a white that has whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. It also has Embalm for 3 and a white, so if this gets killed, we can embalm it to get a copy of it from our graveyard. Court Street Denizen is a 2/2 human soldier, there's that soldier creature type again, for 2 and a white, and it has the effect that whenever another white creature enters the battlefield under our control, tap target creature and opponent controls. So Anointer Priest, along with its kind of copy cards, Core Celebrant and Suture Priest, are going to give us a life for each creature that enters the battlefield. So for every burn spell, that's going to give us 2 creature tokens and therefore 2 life. Now, Court Street Denizen only cares about white creatures entering. But hey, our tokens are both red and white. So if we storm off a little, we can quickly make an army, tap down our opponent's blockers, and then remember, all of those tokens have haste, so they can just swing in immediately. We're also going to be taking advantage of the enter the battlefield triggers with Impact Tremors, which is probably the most expensive card in the deck at about $2. Impact Tremors is an enchantment for 1 and a red that has whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. We get this card into play, and our opponents will die really quickly unless they can address it. But we've got all these soldiers in play, what do we do with them? The easiest thing would be just to swing with them, and so for that I've got pump effects like Wildfire Elemental and Gem Palm Avenger. Wildfire Elemental is a 3/3 elemental for 2 red that has whenever an opponent is dealt a non-combat damage, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So Wildfire Elemental is going to just pump our whole team whenever our opponents are dealt non-combat damage, which we're doing anyways to make more soldiers to swing with. Gem Palm Avenger is a 3/5 human soldier for 5 and a white. And more importantly though, don't worry about that mana cost, it has cycling for 2 and a white, and the effect, whenever you cycle Gem Palm Avenger, soldier creatures get +1/+1 and gain first strike until end of turn. So our commander and all of our tokens are soldier types, which is a very relevant creature type. And for it, we've got this support card, which we can cycle to give all of them a pump. But more importantly, we like that first strike, because if an opponent ever builds up a similarly wide board state and wants to try and trade armies with us, we can use this cycling effect really quickly. And likely, because of that first strike, ours will be the only one surviving, and then our opponents will die on the crackback. Even better, we're not casting this, we're cycling it. So that means that they can't use a negate or similar counterspell to stop this from taking effect. But with combat happening, creatures are going to be dying left, right, and center, especially our disposable 1/1 soldiers. So I'm going to be taking advantage of this with Hissing Iguanar and Guardian Keyren. Hissing Iguanar is a 3/1 lizard for 2 and a red that has whenever another creature dies, I may have Hissing Iguanar deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. So this is going to ping any player anytime a creature dies. And Guardian Keyren is a 2/3 Keyren for 3 and a white that has flying, and whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Guardian Keyren. So this, sitting on the board, is going to get really big very quickly. However, I've found the most important use for our soldiers is to help cast our spells. So first we're going to be taking advantage of our army of tokens with cards like Outflank and Mob Justice. Outflank is an instant for a white mana that it deals damage to target attacking or blocking creature equal to the number of creatures we control. So this is just going to use our superior numbers to take out our opponent's threats. Mob Justice, which is a sorcery for 1 and a red and deals 1 damage to target player for each creature we control. Mob Justice can just outright win the game for us if our army is large enough. On the flip side, we can use our soldiers to burn with cards like Reckless Abandon, Heartfire, and Fiery Conclusion. These instants and sorceries will sacrifice our tokens so we can deal lots of damage despite only putting in a little mana. This is going to synergize really well with our death triggers like Hissing Iguanar, but more importantly, this is going to trigger our commander and give us 2 soldiers. So even though we're sacrificing a creature, our army is actually still growing. Speaking of, that commander is going to attract a lot of attention, and 5 mana is nothing to sneeze at, especially where the mana curve is typically really low to the ground. So we're going to make sure he stays in play with protection enchantments like Angelic Renewal and Crown of Awe. Angelic Renewal is an enchantment for 1 and a white that has whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may sacrifice Angelic Renewal. If you do, return that card to the battlefield. So this is just going to sit on the battlefield and it's going to act as a deterrent. It's going to tell our opponents, hey, don't waste your removal spell. It's not going to do any good. I'm just going to get them right back. So instead, point it at someone else, get rid of their stuff. Crown of Awe is an R enchantment for 1 and a white that has enchanted creature has protection from black and red. And it also has sacrifice Crown of Awe, enchanted creature, and other creatures that share creature type with it gain protection from black and from red until end of turn. So Crown of Awe is going to protect our commander from red and black, the most dangerous colors for creature removal. But with the fun upside, by sacrificing Crown of Awe, we give all of our soldiers protection from black and red. Depending on our opponent's deck, this could let us swing in for damage right through all their blockers and get the win. But the best thing for protecting our commander is Fanatical Devotion, which is the other big budget card in our deck. I think it's $1.50. Fanatical Devotion is an enchantment for 2 and a white that has sacrifice a creature, regenerate target creature. With this enchantment, we're going to use our army of soldiers to protect our commander, who is then going to replace them at double rate anytime that we cast a burn spell. So with this deck, how do we win? We're going to remove our opponent's blockers by burning them, or we're going to be using a swing through spell. For example, Embergale is a sorcery for 3 and a red that has creatures target player controls can't block this turn, and Embergale deals 1 damage to each white and or blue creature that player controls. So this card is going to prevent any of our opponent's creatures from blocking, and if they're doing a white or blue token theme, then it might just wipe out a sizable chunk of their army in the process. Then we're going to swing wide with our token army. And one additional all-star of this deck is going to be Raid Bombardment. Raid Bombardment is an enchantment for 2 and a red that has whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less attacks, Raid Bombardment deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. And this is just perfect for our go wide strategy, where we are going to be swinging in with an army of 1/1s. If our opponents block, we're still getting our damage in, and if they don't, we're doing double damage. It's a win-win for us. And I want you to notice this is actually going to combo particularly well with Wildfire Elemental, because Raid Bombardment is going to trigger individually for each creature, and Wildfire Elemental is going to trigger for each point of non-combat damage. And here it gets kind of a little silly, right? Basically, for every single token we have swinging, our whole board is getting pumped by that amount. So this can get out of control insanely quickly. And even a few tokens hitting could mean lethal if our board is big enough. And with our commander, we're going to have tokens to spare. So that is our Blaze Commando deck. It starts off a little slow, but once it gets going, it's going to be very explosive and give our opponents a lot of trouble. It's going to run us about $18, which is big bucks for those Impact Tremors and Fanatical Devotion cards. The deck list is in the description. So I hope you enjoyed this deck. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on what cards you think we missed or what PDH commanders you'd like to see here next. Tune in next week for my Dimir deck.